I'm calling all ghosts of the world to up the ante on this guy and not
Haunt
give
the shit out of
yeah.
him. Welcome to episode 11 of Spooky and Kooky.
If you're into anything horror, paranormal, conspiracy, you're in the right place, and like and subscribe if you like the video. We've got quite a spooky one today.
Yes, we're doing London Underground and its infamous and many hauntings. So a lot of ghost stories for you today.
Yeah, hope you enjoy.
So I've got a little bit of background about the London Underground itself. And we actually did a tour of it, didn't we?
Yeah, so we actually went on like a spooky and kooky trip to try and get some content ideas for this. And I'm not going to say it was a disaster because I still had a good time.
Yeah.
But we ended up, instead of on a ghost tour or anything to do with ghosts, horror, paranormal, anything like that, we literally just went on a tour of like the history of TfL.
Yeah, and it was one of the disused stations, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or disused parts of the station.
Yeah. And at some points in the station, I've never been so cold in my life.
Yeah, it was really cold.
It was horrendously cold. But if you want to hear anything about ventilation of the underground, we could probably tell you a little bit, but we probably actually couldn't because I retained nothing from that day. Liv actually asked all three of the tour people, didn't she? Or was it just
what if
two?
they'd seen a ghost?
Yeah,
and
if
neither
they'd seen
heard
a ghost.
her.
Yeah, they just didn't reply. So we got no content ideas from that, so we've had to do it all research again. But we tried.
Yeah, we tried, and that's all that matters.
A star for effort.
That's all that counts. But yeah, so it's actually the oldest in the world subterranean metro system,
Oh, okay.
which I'm pretty sure they did tell us on the tour. But yeah, so it's actually older than people think.
Yeah.
And a lot of the existing railways are like offshoots from the original railway lines.
They probably told us that as well, but they could have literally told us pigs are flying, and I would have been like,
Safe.
safe, get me out of this cold tunnel.
So it was constructed using the cut and cover method. I don't know what that was. Opened in 1863.
They told us.
Yeah, well, I don't know. They probably did.
This is what we mean. Let's just forget the underground tour. Forget it ever happened, and I'll stop mentioning it. Because I don't know what it is, but I know they told us about it.
And so it was originally steam trains, which they did
Yeah.
tell us about. So in 1890, the City and South London Railway began operation, becoming the world's first electrified underground railway and the first to navigate through proper deep level tunnels. The Central Line was operational in 1900, followed by Bakerloo and Piccadilly lines in 1906, and what would eventually become the Northern Line by 1907. With such a long history, the Underground has inevitably accumulated a grim record of tragic deaths, passengers and staff members who perished in accidents, suicides, and even the occasional murder. Construction workers also lost their lives while labouring in the darkness, facing threats of subsidence, river bursting into tunnels, seeping sewage, and deadly lurking gas. And if you think that their ventilation system is kind of weird because it's the grids, isn't it? And basically the trains suck in the cold air,
Yeah.
which gives the oxygen. But any disused tunnels would have no oxygen in
Yeah.
it, so it would probably be like quite dangerous.
I can't believe they had sewage teeming in, though.
Well, if you think about it, it's all underground, and so the sewage systems are going to be pretty close. But yeah, grim. And then you've also got to consider that during construction, they disturbed quite a lot of... Yeah, so they went quite close to churchyards, and so they were digging through crypts, burial grounds, and according to London legend, plague pits.
Yeah, I knew they dug up loads of plague graves.
Yeah.
And just thought, this is a great idea.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
But do you know, I didn't know until I learned about that that when you are buried and you buy the gravestone and like the plot you're going to be buried in, it's only for 100 years.
Yeah, and
Then
they
they
just
can do what they want with it.
yeah, I know.
I
It's
didn't know that.
the weirdest thought, isn't it?
Yeah, just like it's okay for 100 years, and then
Or we're just gonna put someone else on top of you.
yeah. To be fair, I didn't think about that. I just thought then we're going to build an underground railway system.
Oh no, I'd be more worried about there being like someone on top of me. To be fair, I wouldn't be buried. I think it's a waste of space.
Yeah, no.
Personally.
I think that yeah, no, I wouldn't.
Don't use it up on me. Just...
No, and you have to stay in that one plot, and then your family are like forced to come visit you.
Yeah, just scatter me somewhere.
Don't come visit me. I didn't want you to come visit me when I was alive. I want to be left alone.
Yeah, so Aldgate Station is reputed to have been built directly over a plague pit, and a mass grave mentioned by Daniel Defoe in his journal of the plague year. So hauntings at Aldgate are really frequent, and the station actually keeps a ghost logbook where they keep all of the occurrences in there and the date and what they saw. According to folklore, the Piccadilly line takes a swerve near Knightsbridge to avoid a plague pit, and the Bakerloo line in Elephant and Castle stops just short of one.
Well, at least they like diverted from it and didn't just go through it.
But how creepy to know that you're like right next to... Yeah. And when the Jubilee line was extended in the 1990s, it disturbed several graveyards of old monasteries, leading to sightings of medieval monks.
Yeah, I've heard about that. It's weird how all of the hauntings seem to correlate with something that happened there.
Yeah, there's even
I've got
one
a few, but yeah.
near the British Museum, I can't remember what station it is, where there's sightings of an Egyptian mummy, like a priestess.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah. But that's a little bit of background for
Lovely.
you guys.
I've got a story and I've got the background to it as well.
Yeah.
And it's from Bank Station, and it's because I think they built on a church crypt.
Right.
Because the bank ticket office is what used to be the crypt.
Oh, okay. Love that. You'd think, like, I don't know, if it was me, I'm not religious, but I'd still want to get it, like, blessed or, like, some sort of, maybe
I want some
sage it.
sage to go through that.
Or get the sage out and do some sort of thing, just in case. You
Honestly,
know?
I would hate to take a job with TfL and then on, like, my second day, research it and learn about all of this. I'd be like, I'm never going into work again. That's sealed that. Right, so this is the Black Nun of Bank Station, and if anyone travels through London regularly and has seen any funny business, comment down below because I would be so intrigued to hear it. So, from the 19th century, commuters who visit the Bank Underground Station have reported sightings of a mysterious figure described as the Black Nun, who wails and groans throughout the station, often accompanied by a sense of dread and foreboding and a smell resembling that of an open tomb. In 1941, 50 people were killed after the Blitz, where a bomb struck the station during the Blitz. It is also said to be built next to an old church crypt. And yeah, I believe the ticket station is either next to the crypt or was the crypt. And the bombings aren't really relevant, but I guess it just adds to the eeriness of the story.
Yeah.
So the nun is thought to be a ghost of Sarah Whitehead, who grieves the loss of her brother that worked at the Bank of England. He was charged with forgery and hanged to death for the crime in 1812. In 1811, Paul Whitehead used to work in the cashier's office at the Bank of England, located at London's Threadneedle Street. He was considered to be courteous and gentle. Philip had somewhat of a dark side, and he was secretly forging documents and defrauding the bank. The bank found out, and Philip was imprisoned and sentenced to death. His death was believed to be secret, that was covered up, and even his family was said to be kept in the dark. Sarah, who was particularly close to Philip, would show up at the bank every day and ask the whereabouts of her brother, and if anyone had seen him. One day, out of pity, a bank worker said the truth about Philip's disappearance, and Sarah could not take this. So imagine your brother's just disappeared and all the bank workers know, and they just did it in secret. Like, that is brutal.
Yeah, he's like, I'm sorry, your brother can't come to the bank right now. Why? Because he's dead.
Oh my god, you're going to get haunted by this sound. I'm no part of that.
It was just a bit of Taylor Swift, guys.
So Sarah, in her grief, began wearing nothing but a long flowing black dress with a veil that covered her face as if she were on her way to a funeral. This is how she earned the nickname the Black Nun. Sarah would continue to visit the bank in this attire and ask her brother's whereabouts, and out of pity bank workers often paid her money to help her deal with her deep grief. However, her grief soon turned into aggression, often accusing the bank of destroying her brother, and by 1818 the bank officials had grown tired of her daily disturbances. They paid her a sum of money on one condition, that she would never return to the bank again, and she agreed to the terms for as long as she was alive. Mm. Then, after her death in 1837, bank employees started seeing Sarah again, as if she would appear out of nowhere in front of the startled bank employees and customers and asking the same questions about where her brother is. And apparently people at the tube station also see her, and sometimes it's accompanied with, "Have you seen my brother?" And usually people just say no, but it's not known what happens if you say yes to it. Oh, so, and I've actually got a witness encounter of the Black Nun. So, and I can't credit this one. Uncredited.
Was it a deleted one on Reddit?
No, it was a YouTube video.
Oh.
But their name was, I don't think it was the person whose story this is.
Oh,
it
fine.
Was, yeah. So, uncredited. I'm sorry. It was around 11:30 in July of 2001, and I was on my way back from a party in Stratford, East London, on the last westbound Central Line train. The train was empty apart from a man sitting in the connecting carriage. As the train reached Liverpool Street Station, I took out my phone to check my messages, and my phone had plenty of power. As the train left the station and went through a tunnel, my phone suddenly lost power. I then started to get lightheaded, my arms had pins and needles, and my energy was drained from me. As the train pulled into the bank station, my symptoms dissipated and I began to feel normal again. So I decided to get off and take the Monuments District and Circle Line train. As I stepped off the train, I noticed a lady sitting near the end of the platform. She was looking down at the ground and she appeared to be crying. As I got closer to the lady, I noticed she had a pale face and was dressed in strange clothes. She had a black Victorian dress, black pointed shoes, a black coat with the hood down, and a small black hat with a veil, covering her face just above the eyes. I asked the lady if she was okay, but she didn't reply. She just looked up at me and smiled as the train left the station. As the train left the station, a platform worker approached me. He said the station was closing and there was no more trains coming through. I told the worker that there was a lady also waiting on the platform and that she was crying. The worker walked to the eastbound platform to find her, but she was nowhere to be seen. I thought it was strange he hadn't seen the lady, as he was walking towards me the whole time I was speaking to her, and would have clearly seen her. As we reached the main entrance of the station, the worker started to lock the gates. I reminded him that the lady was still in the station, but he just laughed and said maybe it was a ghost. I laughed back at him in disbelief as I was walking away, and I didn't think any more about it. Until one day, I read an article on the internet about a strange lady in black Victorian clothing, witnessed by many people walking through the tunnels and platforms of Bank and Monument Underground Station. It sent chills down my spine.
Ugh. I don't know if that's worse, like realising that you've seen a ghost after the fact.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it would kind of be better because then you're out of harm's way. Yeah. But then again, like if it were me, because I'm always on the lookout for these sorts of things, I'd see a woman in a veil and Victorian clothing and a pale face. I'd have got the sense of dread. My phone battery would have died, and I'd be like, the math is mathing. And then as soon as the train worker can't see her, I'm like, okay, it's a ghost. That's
That
fine.
is horrible. But I guess it's probably quite rare that people do see ghosts, unless you're a proper, like, unless you live in London, because I feel like it's on those off-peak times that no one's there.
Yeah.
And then I think, well, are they around when it's busy and just no one notices because everyone's so engrossed in what they're doing?
Maybe. I still feel like people would notice a lady in a full face veil, but I could be wrong.
I don't know.
Victorian dress, like mourning. But yeah, that's the story of the Black Nun, and I really liked that one because it was so specific.
Yeah. Okay, so my story is about the Bethnal Green tube station. So, during the Second World War, Bethnal Green tube station, like many stations on the Underground, served as an air raid shelter. When the sirens wailed, residents of the densely populated East End district would descend the station stairs to spend entire nights safe from the bombs above. The station could accommodate up to 7,000 people with 5,000 bunks available. On March 3rd, 1943, a tragedy struck Bethnal Green that wasn't caused by a German bomb. As the sirens sounded, hundreds of people, mainly the elderly, women and children, hurried into the underground station. A woman carrying a baby and a bundle of bedding stumbled on the crowded, blackened-out staircase. Others fell over her, causing a chain reaction of tripping and tumbling. The stairway soon became a tangled heap of bodies, with panic spreading and frantic attempts to escape making the situation worse. Nearly 300 people fell, with 173 losing their lives from crushing or asphyxiation. 60 others were hospitalised. To avoid damaging morale, the government delayed reporting the disaster for 36 hours, leading to accusations of a cover-up. Well, I mean,
that's literally what they did.
You've defined a cover-up there. When finally reported, it was initially claimed that the deaths were due to a direct bomb hit. So they're still lying. A memorial plaque wasn't installed until 50 years later. No other wartime incident in Britain resulted in greater loss of civilian life. The disaster also marked the largest number of deaths from any event of the London Underground. Of the victims, only 27 were men and the rest were women and children. So there's a couple of different types of encounters, I would say.
Okay.
So the first one is sounds, the ghostly sounds that people have heard. So late at night, when the hustle and bustle of the station has quietened down, staff and the occasional late-night passengers have reported hearing ghostly sounds echoing through the empty station. These sounds often include the sobbing of children, panicked screams, and distant cries for help. Some say these sounds are especially pronounced on the anniversaries of the tragic incident in 1943. One station worker, who had been on duty during a particularly quiet night, described hearing what he thought was a child crying. As he walked towards the sound, the cries grew louder and more desperate. When he reached the platform, he found it completely empty. The crying abruptly stopped, leaving the worker with an overwhelming sense of sadness and unease. Then the second type is the apparitions and shadows themselves. So many people have reported seeing ghostly apparitions and fleeting shadows at Bethnal Green Station. These sightings are often brief, but leave a lasting impression on those who witness them. One chilling account comes from a commuter who was waiting for the last train of the night. As she stood on the platform, she noticed a small child standing alone at the far end. The child appeared lost and frightened. Concerned, she began to walk towards the child, but as she got closer, the child vanished into thin air, leaving no trace behind. Another frequent report involves shadowy figures that seem to move swiftly along the platform, only to disappear when approached. These shadows are often accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature, adding to the chilling atmosphere. And then I've got a little story of a station worker.
Okay.
It's only short. In the late 1970s, a station worker named John experienced a particularly unnerving encounter. While finishing up his paperwork in the early hours of the morning, he began to hear the unmistakable sounds of children sobbing and panicked screams. At first, he tried to rationalise the noises, thinking they might be echoes from above ground. However, as the sounds grew louder and more intense, John couldn't shake the feeling of dread. He decided to investigate, hoping to find an explanation. As he walked through the empty station, the noises seemed to follow him, growing more deafening with each step. Overwhelmed by fear, John abandoned his search and ran back to the office. He later described the experience as one of the most terrifying moments of his life.
Oh, God. Imagine just be trying to do your job.
I know, just be like, I just need to earn a living, please.
I don't want to be here, but I can't leave.
And I've always said children ghosts are the scariest as well. Imagine seeing a lone child and then it disappearing.
Yeah.
And then people say that they have like hollowed out eyes as well. Like just imagine it turning round and it's just no, thank you.
Right, I'm going to do the ghost of Elephant and Castle. It's called The Girl Who Never Leaves the Train. So the Bakerloo line starts and terminates at Elephant Castle, and many have reported that a young girl boards the train at the station but has never been seen leaving. The myth around her is so strong that even London Underground tube drivers have reported seeing her enter the train but never leave. The station has reports of other spooky happenings, such as sprinting footsteps on empty platforms, doors being flung open and slammed, and creepy tapping noises are also aplenty. The Elephant and Castle Underground Railway Station serves the Northern Line and the Bakerloo Line, originally named the Baker Street and Waterloo Railway. The apparition of a young woman has been seen several times by both staff and customers on the Bakerloo Line part of the station. She boards the train at Elephant and Castle Station. She walks through the carriages, then disappears without a trace. What would cause the drivers to see the woman? Are they just tired from working? Is it something that is emitted around the train affecting the drivers, or is it actually a ghost girl? And I've got a story of a witness account who's a bit of an arsehole, if I do add, just because of what he says at the end.
Yeah.
So he is a employee, it's not a customer, so he says 'twas around 6.
I already hate you.
I knew you were going to roll your eyes at that bit. I couldn't find any other witness accounts, and I was like, fucking usual, aren't I?
This guy.
'Twas around 6 in the evening. No, it says 'twas around 6 of the evening.
Of
God,
an evening.
it gets worse and worse. At a Bakerloo Line underground station, about a week ago. I need to get in the spooky zone. We always ruin it.
I know.
About a week ago, I was in pursuit of my duties as an employee of London Underground, so I joined the train at the terminus at Elephant and Castle and walk forward to the front of the train with a view to travelling with the driver. At this point, the driver has not arrived, so I put my bag down and move to the rear door to wait for him. While I am, a girl gets into the carriage. She walks straight through the carriage and I have to move aside, making some muttered apology. I sort of have to do this since I was in uniform, so I'm guessing she shoved past him and he didn't want to apologise. A minute or so later, the train driver turns up and we move forward to the front of the train. I notice that the girl is not in the carriage, and this is rather immediate cause for concern. She could not have left the train without passing me. I had full view of the carriage and platform at the time. My reaction was to inform the driver. The only place she could have gone was to have walked down the tunnel, not really what we want. The driver's response was unusual. Oh, her, we hear about her all the time. She's even been in the papers. Lovely, my first real ghost is a media celebrity, and it must be said, very, very boring indeed. I'm calling all ghosts of the world to up the ante on this guy and not
Haunt
give
the shit out of
yeah.
him.
If he thinks it's boring, do something to really scare the shit out of him.
Ghosts of the world, unite!
Honestly, how ungrateful. How disrespectful.
I love how he wouldn't have even said sorry if he wasn't at work as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something
Just
stupid.
the fact that he starts the story with "'twas 6 of an evening. I just know the type of person he is and I don't want to know him.
Apologies, fair maiden. a knob.
Yeah. Imagine if it was someone just walking down the tunnel and he's like,
Boring.
now we have to go down there and get her. It's like such an inconvenience. But yeah, that's the ghost of Elephant and Castle. And again, anyone who has any stories of any of these stations or any others, I would really love to hear them, because there's really not many actual witness accounts out there, like proper accounts. There's a lot about general things in the media, but not much of proper witness accounts.
No.
So it's, they're scarce.
And if you know why it's called Elephant and Castle, because I've always wondered how they get their names of stations.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
It's an unusual name.
Yeah, I'm guessing the bank one was because it was next to the Bank of England.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them make sense. But
Yeah, no, I don't know that one.
Piccadilly Circus.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go there thinking it's going to be a really big circus in the middle of the square, but I don't think it is.
Oh, okay. I have a Reddit story. And this came from Carl 0071. So thanks, Carl.
Shout out to Carl 0071. Sounds
Not,
like a
not.
robot.
Yeah. I am Carl. I didn't need to do that.
Didn't do the voice.
I'm going to read it in that voice. Just to really ruin
the
mood. Okay. A few years ago, I worked as a dispatcher on the London Underground. Basically, this involves instructing a train driver when it's safe for his train, or her actually, he just said their train, to depart the platform, and performing general checks on the safety of passengers as they're boarding the train. One evening, I was sent to cover a shift at Snaresbrook on the east end of the Central Line. Although there are regular trains passing through which need dispatching, there weren't many passengers getting on or off of the train at Snaresbrook that evening. Most of my shift between trains, I spent sat on the bench on the platform. This isn't usually allowed on the busier stations, but there was absolutely nobody else at the station at the time, and it was quite a boring shift. I was browsing Facebook and a couple of news sites when I heard somebody cough next to me in order to get my attention. "Excuse me, when is the next train to Blake Hall?" The gentleman standing next to me was a very well-dressed gentleman wearing a bowler hat with a folded umbrella under his arm and a brown leather briefcase in his hand. He spoke with a very posh accent, which was unusual for that part of London. "Blake Hall? Where's that?" I replied as I stood up. It wasn't a station I was familiar with. He looked at me with a curious stare. "You do work at the station, don't you?" he replied rather abruptly. I nodded and said something like, "Of course I do." He then showed me his train ticket, which he was clutching in his palm. It looked nothing like the tickets we use on our railway, but it did state that the ticket was valid from Snaresbrook to Blake Hall. It was a lot smaller, and although the ticket looked new in its condition, the design looked decades old. "Then please tell me where I can get to Blake Hall," he replied swiftly. I excused myself for a moment while I contacted the control room on my radio. "Requesting control, over." Within seconds or so, I had a reply. "Control received, what's your message?" I paused for a moment on how to phrase what I wanted to say. "Control, I've got a passenger here with a ticket to Blake Hall, over." The delay was longer than before. "That's not a station on our network. What's your position, over?" He confirmed my original thoughts. There are 270 tube stations on my network, and I'd never heard of Blake Hall either. Meanwhile, the middle-aged passenger was standing in front of me. "I'm the dispatcher at Snaresbrook this evening, over." Control answered immediately. "Okay, send the passenger over to platform 2 across the footbridge. Next train to Blake Hall is in 12 minutes, over." Although I was certain the passenger had heard the conversation I just had, I told him exactly what control room had told me to say. He smiled and put his ticket back in his pocket, thanking me and tipping his hat as he walked away in the direction of the footbridge, which went on to the other platform. I watched as he walked up the steps of the enclosed footbridge, and then my radio went off again. Control to Snaresbrook dispatcher, over. Snaresbrook receiving, over. I acknowledged the message as I had done before. Is the passenger still with you, over? No, the passenger is crossing the footbridge onto platform 2, over. There was a short pause. Did the passenger speak with an old-fashioned posh accent? The conversation between me and the staff member in the control room seemed more informal this time. Yeah, he did actually. Why do you ask? That's old Bill. He's a resident ghost passenger at Snaresbrook. I thought this was some kind of wind-up at first. Look over at the other platform. He isn't there, is he? I was told almost sarcastically. I looked over and he was right. There was nobody there. I decided to walk over the footbridge and onto the other platform, but he was nowhere to be seen. There are no exits on that footbridge or on the other platform, so he couldn't have just left the station either. He's not here, he's gone, I said into the radio. Yep, that's definitely old Bill. He's been seen a lot down there over the years. We just send him on his way when he's seen. He died back in 1952 on the train home one night. Heart attack, I think. I was shaken by that point. I didn't believe in ghosts and spirits. But where's Blakehall Station then? I replied. This didn't make any sense. It used to be further down the Central Line. They closed the station in 1981. And that's it. Old Bill.
That is so creepy. I know. The fact he had a ticket and everything. And that's the thing, you don't believe until you believe.
Yeah.
You don't believe until you go down the path or you see something and it's just so blatantly clear.
And I think that would mess me up really, because you had a full-on conversation. You didn't even know that person wasn't a physical person.
Yeah.
They look like anyone else.
Like, who else has been a ghost in my life? Yeah, everyone's a ghost.
It's like the Sixth Sense or something.
Yeah, that was a really creepy one. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Although at least he was all right.
Yeah.
Bit rude, but...
Yeah.
So, my last story. Have you ever heard of the Kennington Loop?
No.
So it's south of Kennington Station, and basically it goes in a circle. So instead of the train having to go back to the terminal, to the, whatever it's called, depot, that's what the word I was looking for, it can go back around, so it can go the other direction.
Yeah.
But then it's really weird, because if you fall asleep, it feels like you're on some sort of ghost train, because you end up back where you started because you've gone back round. But it's apparently quite haunted.
Okay.
And a lot of the tube drivers and anyone who has to do service works in that part often see things.
Is it one of those things that if you're put on there, people are like, oh, it's your turn?
Yeah, probably. And they're like, damn it. I don't want to. But I've got a story of a maintenance worker that was assigned to it. So, maintenance worker named Paul was assigned to inspect the Kennington Loop late one night. The Loop, a dark and seldom visited part of the Northern Line, was known for its unsettling atmosphere. Despite this, Paul was used to working alone in the tunnels and had never encountered anything out of the ordinary until that night. As Paul walked along the tracks, his flashlight casting long shadows on the damp tunnel walls, he noticed a strange shape at the edge of his vision. It looked like a figure standing just out of reach of his light. Paul stopped and shone his flashlight directly at the spot, but there was nothing there. Dismissing it as a trick of the light, he continued his inspection. A few minutes later, Paul heard a faint sound of something behind him, like a shuffling of feet on the gravel. Oh, God. He turned around, but again saw nothing. The tunnel was empty, and the only sound was a distinct hum of the city's activity above. Feeling a growing sense of unease, Paul quickened his pace, eager to finish his work and get back to the main station. As he neared the end of the loop, Paul saw the shape again, this time clearer and closer. It was a shadowy figure standing silently by the tunnel wall. The figure appeared to be a man dressed in a dark, tattered clothing with his face obscured in the shadows. Paul's heart raced as he realised the figure wasn't reflecting any light from his flashlight. It was as if it absorbed the light, remaining a dark silhouette. Summoning his courage, Paul called out to the figure, asking if it needed any help. There was no response, only the echo of his own voice. He took a step closer and the figure suddenly moved, disappearing into the darkness of the tunnel. Paul felt a cold breeze pass him and the air around him grew noticeably colder. Shaken, Paul finished his inspection as quickly as possible and returned to the station. He reported the incident to his supervisor, who listened with a concerned expression. To Paul's surprise, his supervisor revealed that other workers had reported similar encounters in the Kennington Loop. The shadowy figure, often described as a man in dark clothing, had been seen by several workers over the years, always appearing and disappearing without a trace.
No job is worth that, I'm sorry, I wouldn't go.
I mean, I like working alone,
screaming.
but
Yeah.
I'm not seeing a ghost.
I have a similar one to that I'm going to go through within the Watchery. So the Watchery this week is related. It's called Ghost of the Underground, and you can watch it for free on YouTube, or you can buy the DVD on Amazon for £200. So it's your choice which one you want to do. But yeah, it's called The Ghost of the Underground, and it's loads of stories from passengers, workers who have had paranormal experiences, and mostly it was good. There was a few where I was like, okay, and I really didn't like it because they got a scientist in to give reasoning for most of the things that go on, and he put it down to infrared noise.
What? What's that?
Yeah, so apparently infrared noise can give you funny sensations, and like prolonged exposure to it could account for like hearing or seeing things, apparently.
Ooh.
And he went down there with this little microphone and he was like, see, there's lots of infrared noise down here.
Yeah.
And I think they did, they looked into the one, it might have been the same one, could have been at Bethnal Green, but someone in the ticket office heard screams and stuff that was in the tube station, but then he did a little test on his microphone and like simulated noise from outside, and you could hear it in the ticket office.
Oh, okay.
So it was just noise from outside. He also disproved a construction worker who was working in a tunnel, and he was like, doors slam. And this construction worker, he was really cut up about it because he had been working in these tunnels for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And he was like, they're starting to really affect me because it's just creepy.
Yeah.
Like, there's cold spots, the doors slam, there's stuff that happens down there. And he went down there with like a bit of tape and was like, see, when the train goes that way, there's a breeze pushing the cold air down, and then when the train goes that way, the breeze comes back, and that accounts for the cold spots.
I think he'd be aware of that. Someone who works in the tunnels.
That's what I thought, but apparently not. And then he was like, so that accounts for the cold spots, and as opposed to the door, it's just the wind blowing back and forth that's
Let me mansplain how wind works.
Honestly, by the end of it, I was like, let me shove that fucking microphone up your ass.
You need to tape up your mouth.
I'm actually not an aggressive person. I say these things, but I'm not an aggressive person. But yeah, some of the stories were really interesting. I obviously told you, but I'll just go over it again, about the woman who's got a picture. And Liv, I'll send you this picture in editing, but when I first saw it, I couldn't see it. I actually had to view this picture 3 times when watching it. I had to rewind and view it 3 times. So the first time I saw it, couldn't see shit. Didn't even know it was the picture. I just thought it was her from her childhood going on the tube. So I was like, oh, right, it's fine. It's not the picture. They're going to show us the picture in a minute.
Yeah.
Went through and then they started talking about the picture and I was like, maybe that was the picture. So I went back and looked at it again, couldn't see shit. Then rewatched it on a little bit, and they told me what I was looking for, and apparently it's a man sat in an electric chair. I've shown Ellen it.
And when I knew what it was, I could maybe just about see it. But if you had showed it with no context, it would have been like a family photo.
Yeah. You can barely see the man in the chair behind. When it zoom in, you can see it a little bit more. But it's meant to be this bloke who was put to death, and his statue was in Madame Tussauds, the waxwork figure.
Right.
So they were able to compare the picture to the waxwork, and they were like, it's similar. Like, he's wearing exactly the same things. The only thing on the picture is apparently there's blue sparks coming out of his fingers. I cannot see that.
I didn't see that either.
That's just what the woman said. I didn't see it personally. Hello, we just wanted to interrupt this segment to say that in editing we could actually see the blue sparks and they became quite clear to us. Still see what you think, but we just wanted to interrupt to say that we can definitely see them now. But back to the episode. But have a look at it. Obviously we'll put it up here, but also if you're interested, just Google electric chair underground picture and just see what you think and let us know, because I couldn't see any blue sparks. But yeah, she said that people said it might have been a poster for Madame Tussauds advertising it, that they went past and the camera got it, but apparently Madame Tussauds has never had posters like that. So it is a bit peculiar. But I'm just, for me, because I couldn't see it, and I always want to see it, I always want to believe.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for it. So, yeah, that was a bit, that was alright. And then there was one that really haunted me, to be fair. It was a guy who he was a young bloke, he got this job as a tunnel walker.
Right.
Which was an actual job that people applied for. It's at night, when the stations are closed and there's no trains.
Yeah.
You go through the tunnels just with a flashlight to make sure that nothing's, like, no debris or anything, just checking the line.
This is what I thought our tour would be. I wanted the hard hat and the torch, and I wanted to be going down those tunnels.
They said we were going to the 3Ds, damp, dark and dangerous.
Yeah, well, I mean,
we didn't
it
have
was
any.
a bit damp.
Oh yeah, it was a bit damp.
There was some puddles, but
yeah, it dripped on
I
Liv.
expected to be walking the line.
That water dripped on Liv. I know. I was like, I hate to be you.
Oh, now I've got to bleach my entire body. Grim.
I wonder if that guy from California's doing well.
Oh my god, he's not from California, his stuff's there.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the tour, everyone asked everyone where they were from. And this one guy was so mysterious, he was just like, my stuff's in California. And they were like, oh, okay, where are you from though? And he was like, my stuff is in California.
A little bit here, a little bit there. I travel.
You don't need to know any more than that. My stuff's in California.
You're not a man of mystery.
That is how much I'm willing to share. So, yeah, it was a day. Anyway, back to the story. So he's a tunnel walker. And there's also, I can't remember what they're called, fluffers, who go and collect human hair that's been blown into the track or onto the underground station.
But do they still do that now?
I'm not sure. It was in the documentary. They said about it, and I was like, why do they need to collect that? Surely it would just, like...
Would it jam up?
Apparently. Like, if enough of it, because of all the wind blowing, I guess,
I
it
bet
would create a big hairball
well.
and then get stuck. So that they need a job for that.
Literal tumbleweed.
Yeah. This man wasn't that. He was a tunnel walker. Which, like I said, you were on your own at night walking the tunnels.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, I judged him for even applying. I judge anyone applying to that job, because why would you do it? You're obviously going to
I can imagine Rich doing that. He'd be like, yeah, no one's going to talk to me, no one's going to bother me, I'll just have a walk around.
Yeah, and then he'd encounter a ghost.
Yeah,
like,
but
nah,
he wouldn't
it wasn't.
accept it. He'd be like, nah, it's just the fucking pipes.
So Rich is Ellen's boyfriend, and he's really sceptical. And I've actually got a ghost picture in my family.
Yes.
That we will show on the pod one day. We're going to do Haunted Isle of Wight stories, and I'm going to put it as part of that. And he said it was something to do with trees and dimensions.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're reaching so hard for it not to be a ghost that it is just a ghost. Like, I'm sorry.
How can you say it's a tree? What, the tree with fucking a person's face on it? How does that happen? How is the tree more plausible?
That's a little cliffhanger for people. Just wait for that picture and see what you think.
Yeah,
anyway.
he would be the person that would apply for that job.
Yeah.
100%.
And then, like, just swear blind that he's never seen anything suspicious. Or even if he did, he'd be like, nah.
But yeah, I've
Trick
seen
of the
a
light.
couple of children down there. They're just lost. They just
Trick
found
of the
their way
light.
out.
Maybe I'm just crazy. All the gas get into my head.
Oh my god.
So yeah, this guy, I feel like this story is taking about 7 minutes just to get through the tunnel worker bit. It's so perplexing that anyone would do that.
So many question marks.
So yeah, he was down there one night walking the tunnels, and as he was walking, someone came walking to him the opposite way. So obviously he's got a modern day torch with batteries and he's looking. And this guy's got, I believe, what they call a tilly lamp, which I imagine is an old-fashioned lamp.
Yeah.
And this guy thought it was kind of strange because he thought they weren't really used anymore. He stopped and had a conversation with this bloke, like, oh, how you doing? How's your night going? Oh, that's a strange lamp you're using. And he was like, I just prefer this one, and then went on his way down the tunnel. So the bloke got to the end of the tunnel and spoke to the guy he was on with, and he was like, oh, there's another guy down there, but I'm safe for the train because they obviously have to be accounted for before they turn on the trains for the next morning.
Yeah.
So they were like, right, we'll have to do a tunnel search. So you go at one side and I'll go at the other, because they were like, no one's scheduled to be down there, or no other workers are meant to be down here. So you go at one side, I'll go at the other. We'll walk down the tunnel and meet in the middle.
Yeah.
As predicted, no one was in the tunnel. But because they had to do the tunnel search, the train for the next morning was 20 minutes late getting off.
Yeah.
Which obviously in London you don't want to make a train 20 minutes late. So he was called in to his supervisor, and his supervisor was like, do you think this is funny?
Oh my god.
And the guy was like, I saw a guy down there with a tilly lamp. This is what happened. And he was like, oh, so you've been hearing the ghost stories, have you? Or something to that effect. And just basically like ripped him and thought that he had heard of these ghost stories, made up that he had seen the guy just for the pure lols. And he was like, I just had to sit there and keep my mouth shut to avoid looking even more stupid. But I was like...
Anything for the Vance, that one.
Yeah.
Why would you make that shit up?
Yeah.
Imagine you are trying to tell him and he's like, oh, you've heard the ghost stories, and you'd be like...
What? Yeah, because he hadn't.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I generally haven't. Like...
What?
And it turns out that apparently on that line... round about where he was walking when he saw the man, there was a worker back in the day who got crushed by an oncoming train because he didn't get out of the tunnel before the train came, and he was working with a tilly lamp.
That's mad.
And when we watched it, I said to Kieran that I'm not working after my death. Like, you've had me in life, like, just leave me the fuck alone. Like, please, this is hell.
What, as in you wouldn't come back to haunt someone?
I wouldn't come back to work. I wouldn't come back just to walk what I used to do.
If you died at work, does that mean that you come back as a ghost at work?
So Kieran said, these are people who don't even know they're dead.
Yeah.
So they just go about their day-to-day routine. And I was like, I'm putting it in my will. I do not want to work after I'm dead.
Imagine. It's like, you know those days where you're like, this feels like a whole week in a day?
Yeah, and you're
fucking
actually
dead.
just dead.
Yeah.
And you don't know it because you don't know the accident that's happened that killed you, or whatever happened that's killed you, and you're just going about your day-to-day life.
Just waiting for the weekend.
Yeah.
It's never gonna
And you're not
happen.
even on payroll anymore.
This is free labour.
It's like that thing, that meme on the internet that's like, when you die and your employer's like, oh, can you cover a shift this weekend?
Oh, that would be horrible. Yeah, it probably is. If you die at work, that's probably where your ghost is going to come back.
Because I said something to the effect of like, oh, that guy must really love his job to still be down there. I'm not working after I die. Like, I'm putting it in the will. And Kieran was like, he probably doesn't even know he's dead.
Oh, and imagine
like,
if it's
that
because
is
he's
hell.
got like unfinished business because he had something to fix.
That is hell. But then again, it makes him not malevolent.
Yeah,
like, he's
he
just
seemed
going
pretty chill
about
about
his
it.
business. He seems happy using his Tilly lamp. He prefers using it. Let's just leave him to it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, for me personally,
It's not for me.
not coming in. In this documentary, they also use some creative choices. They were choices. They had some really long takes, arguably too long, because
Right.
it would be like a station worker just sat there before they start their story, just like, just really looking like intensely, and then they made one woman sit on the floor in the corner of her home.
Oh, I thought
Like,
you were going to say in the tube station.
No,
I was
no,
like,
no.
no thanks.
No, they made her sit in a corner of her lounge, just on the floor, like. And then when she told her story, she was sat on the sofa. So I was like, "Did you go into her home?" Be like, "Sorry, can you? I'm just having a creative moment. Can you sit on the floor?" And then we'll just get our shot, and then you can come sit back down.
There's something wrong with this. Let's try it on the floor, guys.
But she didn't speak on the floor. It was just like the camera did one of those slow zoom outs, and she just sat there like. And sometimes after the scene had ended, and they had told their story, the shot was too long still, so it would just be like if they had laughed in their story, they would be sat there like.
Oh my god.
But it was uncomfortably long.
That's the one. That gives me anxiety.
It was funny though watching it, like when we had picked up on it, because the first 10 minutes, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, this might have to go off. And I don't turn many things off, I watch Eyes Shut.
That's facts.
That's the movie that everything's compared to. I watched Eyes Shut, so I can't turn anything off now. But yeah, the first 10 minutes were a bit hairy, but then when we started to laugh at the way it was edited,
Yeah.
it became a lot of an easier watch. But there are some quite interesting stories in it, and obviously the picture that I said about that we'll put up, but go look it up because it's here. It could go either way.
We know the way it's going.
Yeah, it could go either way. But yeah, that's the end of the episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you were spooked by some of it. Hope you don't want to go on the underground tube station anymore because we scared you so much.
Want to hear your own stories? Please share.
Yes, and like and subscribe if you like the video. Obviously, because apparently it helps out the channel. We're really new, so we don't know.
Actually,
it's just what people say.
What would be cool, because we are new and we want to make sure we're getting it right, is if you do like it, if you could comment a little train and a ghost.
Yes.
And we know that you guys love it, and we will keep doing what we do.
Because you might feel pressured to comment your story or like it. Don't feel pressured, just comment the ghost in the train. A little bit of pressure.
Well, actually, to be fair, even if you don't want to comment your story, just send us a message on Instagram or something.
Yeah, we do usually reply because we are new, so we're accessible at the moment. No.
Get the stories in before it's too late.
We always make jokes about becoming big, but we generally have no expectation from this. We're just two idiots with a camera and a microphone talking about spooky stuff, so we joke about it, but honestly we do want to get to know a community that is free to talk about this stuff, because you might have noticed our boyfriends don't believe in it.
They just leave us to talk about it with each other.
Yeah,
So
we did
we're
this
lonely.
to spite them.
And one day we will get them on to try and convince them of something. That is the goal.
They will rue that day.
Show Rich that picture, he might actually see it. He's like, oh my, that shook me.
That's changed my whole perspective. Show me the Isle of Wight one again.
I'm a believer now.
Okay, that outro's gone on far too long.
Thanks,
that was
guys.
just us rambling, but we'll see you next time. And yeah, take care.
See you later.
Oh yeah, see you later.
Spooky and kooky, mystery and wonder. Feel the magic under. Spooky and kooky.